What's going on, bottom line viewers? It's Mitch here, joined by AC, Fitty, Trent, Kessel. We are here to recap game number 2 of the Ottawa Senators versus the Pittsburgh Penguins. I've yet to determine what I'm going to title this video, but we'll see what we get from the discussion. The Pittsburgh Penguins do rebound off of what I thought was a poorly played game number 1. Senators took that game. Pittsburgh responded, took this one 1-0, and in my opinion, a lot more entertaining game. I don't think we can really argue that. There was probably 10 less icings in this game. There was a lot less stoppages, and that definitely helped the game, especially in the second period where we started to see some intensity, some physicality, and, some hacking and whacking. And that's always nice to see in a playoff series. I felt like game 1, it is a game 1, so they're kind of feeling each other out. Game number 2, we got that intensity riled up. I'm looking forward to game 3 as well for that. But game number 2, pretty solid game. We're going to discuss the performances. We're going to go through the stats, the best players, the worst players, and also what we take away from this game going into game number 3, because this is a 7-game series. Guys, what did you think of the game from, an entertainment standpoint? Did you enjoy the game? And just quick thoughts on both teams.
Well, from an entertainment standpoint, I have to say that the first and second period were absolutely great hockey, great playoff hockey, extremely enjoyable to watch. I was so looking forward to the third. I mean, it was a tie game, 0-0, but then the third period just ended up being kind of just a practice, basically, for the Pittsburgh Penguins as they lit up, destroyed the Ottawa Senators, who just looked lazy, did not look like they had the same intensity whatsoever. I don't know what happened in between the periods, but yeah, overall this game, it was much more intense because you did have those first 2 periods that were a lot of great hockey. But that third period, it was just kind of, Pittsburgh dominated. So if you're a Pittsburgh fan, congratulations. Your team won. If you're not a Ottawa Senators fan, well, there's always game 3.
Yeah, no, for me, everyone kind of knew Pittsburgh was going to come out hungry, which they did. They set the tone. With all the hits they had, they out-hit. They got a lot of good chances. Anderson was stellar in this one. I think Pittsburgh deserved to win regardless, but that goal was, a tough bounce. It's Karlsson. You're getting prepared for that first shot. It bounces off Pajot's skate right to Kessel, and then Kessel puts it in, which is great. Exciting game. It sets up well for game 3 because on that third, but still showed that they can somewhat tame Pittsburgh's offense. And I think we almost could see this the rest of this series. And it was a good game. And now it's nice that it's evened up 1-1. And I think they needed a somewhat exciting game just because watching Nashville-Anaheim just last night, that's exciting. And I think they kind of had this whole series needed to step up to get some more viewers going on this series.
I don't know what to make of this game, to be completely honest with you. I think that this really depends on your perspective. On one hand, if you're Ottawa, if you come out of here with a split, you're probably happy. And you've played pretty well defensively. You still haven't allowed a goal from Pittsburgh in the first 2.5 periods of each game. The Penguins haven't scored a goal in the first 2 periods in now 3 or 4 straight home games. So on one hand, if you're Ottawa, you're pretty happy. But if you're also Ottawa, you should be concerned about the 2 shots that you got in the tribute to the 1998 Czech Republic gold medal performance from Nagano that they performed in the third period. I do think they need to start being a little bit more offensive. 2 shots in the third period. If I was a Senators fan, I would be concerned. If I'm a Penguins fan, I don't know what to make of this game, to be honest with you. I thought that there were times that they looked great, but there were other times that they looked really frustrated with the Senators system. And you could see them getting a little bit exasperated as the game went on. So I don't know if this game gave any momentum to anybody or not. I'm going to be interested to see how game 3 comes across, because I don't know who has the momentum, to be honest with you.
What I got from this game mostly was that I said in game 1 that Pittsburgh played like crap. And in this game, this is what Pittsburgh can play like, and it was closer to what their full potential is. Obviously had some injuries, so that kind of hurt them in the stretch, but they adjusted to that. They actually played with effort, and I think when they played with effort in this game, you saw their dominance. And yes, they only won 1-0, but the possession was there, which was nice to see as a Penguins fan, because every broadcaster out there that's been doing these games will tell you that Pittsburgh's this possession team, and they've been dominating teams last year with possession, but this year they only outshot a team one time in the playoffs. So it was nice to see that possession game against a defensive team like Ottawa. What I said in the first game was they were having trouble adjusting, to Ottawa's style, because the Capitals are a lot different. Columbus is a lot different. Columbus and the Capitals both play a lot more of an offensive-oriented game. This team in Ottawa, they like to play very defensive. They're going to let, them come to you, and then they're going to try and counterattack off of that. And this is what I saw Pittsburgh do. They were breaking out way better out of their zone. They were using more of their speed. It just seemed like the skill was there. You know how I said in the recap last time, they couldn't pass the puck. They couldn't receive a pass. It seemed like every time they tried to, get up the boards, they were able to get up the boards. Every time they tried to chip a puck to a guy to get in onside, they got in onside. It's just the little things like that they weren't doing in game one and executing, and they did in game two. So if you're a Penguins fan, I think you need to be pleased about that. If you're an Ottawa fan, obviously it's 1-1 and you're heading back home. So that is a positive sign. But I think you need to be, a little bit worried about that third period, like Trent said. Just possession-wise, when it counted, it was 0-0, and you got totally dominated. That's a big thing. But also, you only lost this game 1-0. So, I mean, it's not that big of a deal. Like I was as a Pittsburgh fan last game, where I thought my team played terrible in the first game, and we only lost 2-1. I was like, okay, we only lost 2-1. Next game, if we play a better game, we can win. And if you're an Ottawa fan, I'm not sure if it was that you guys played bad or if that Pittsburgh upped their level or whatever it was, but you got to look at, hey, if Anderson can continue to play this way, and maybe we have, one of those shots go in on Fleury, we could have won this game, even with Pittsburgh dominating the possession in the second and the third period. So, it's kind of an interesting spot, like Kev said, but I definitely don't think, to respond what Kev said last recap, I don't think the Penguins are in trouble.
I don't know if you can come away with this game and thinking that they're not. 2 more injuries. There's still some health questions on that defense. As I said, there were times tonight that I thought they looked very frustrated with what Ottawa was.
I don't think they were frustrated with Ottawa. I thought they were frustrated with themselves, because they were breaking through and they were getting opportunities, but they couldn't score. There was a number of times where they're in front of the net. Gensel put it over the top. They hit a post. They were getting these opportunities that were good opportunities, and they were slicing through the defense, but they couldn't score. And Anderson was a big reason why. And also, you look at that Crosby line, they probably had like 8 opportunities to score in this game. And a lot of them were just missed opportunities. And again, that goes back to execution. While I thought the Pittsburgh Penguins were better in execution in this department this game instead of last game, I think they can get better, especially offensively. But yeah, Kev, I think their defense was pretty solid tonight.
Yeah, and what I'll say with Ottawa too is I think you could say the same with Pittsburgh last game. I think that third period wasn't the Ottawa Senators we're going to see for the rest of this series.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, if you're an Ottawa fan and you lost 1-0 here, and maybe you look at this third period as, that wasn't our game.
That's not how they played all playoffs, right?
Yeah,
maybe
you don't know.
Here and there, but
it's tough.
Let me counteract that though. Is this not a situation where Ottawa could have went to home 2-0?
Yeah, for sure. I just think
they could have
1-1.
They could have, but clearly, if you watch the game, it looked like Pittsburgh was the better team. Like, obviously, Ottawa could have got 1 or 2 bounces here and there and won the game still. And we would have been looking at this game from a different perspective. Like, wow, Ottawa just escaped with a win. Anderson played great, and now they're up 2-0, and Pittsburgh's in trouble. But it came away that Pittsburgh did get that goal from Kessel, which we'll discuss him. But
yeah, but I think Ottawa is going to come away kicking themselves not taking this, because I think 1-1 is fine, but 2-0 is better. And I think sometimes because Ottawa is a severe underdog, we're all like, well, it's okay, it's 1-1. You got a split in Pittsburgh, where I think that there was an opportunity where they, especially in the first 2 periods, they could have won the game tonight. They had their opportunities for sure. And I think their 1-3-1 and playing too defensive in the third period was in part of the problem. But we'll see.
I also think maybe Trent wants to get in here, but how long are you going to play? I know this is the way that the Senators play, but how long are you going to rely on your defense against a team like Pittsburgh? Like, you're going to have to score eventually. Eventually, Pittsburgh is going to go, maybe it's only in like 3 minutes in one game where they score 2 back-to-back goals. Like, eventually something is going to break down. Eventually they're going to score. Like, you're going to need to get more opportunities. If we look even back at last game, one of their goals was a turnover from Pittsburgh's defense and a mistake by Pittsburgh that gave Ottawa the free goal. And then the other one was an overtime on a breakaway. So, I mean, how defensive are you going to be if you're Ottawa?
Well, I think we're all on the same page that, the 1-3-1 works until you get scored against, and then you need to have another play in your playbook. That's just the problem with Ottawa, what happened tonight. They only have that one play, that one set strategy, and that was the death of them. It's, defense is great until you get scored on, and then you need to start working on some offensive plays.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of trying to say too. I think that there's a lot of skill on this Ottawa team that people are maybe missing or overlooking. I mean, a lot of the talk for the last couple of days was the emergence of Bobby Ryan. I don't know if he heard about this emergence and went for a coffee in Pittsburgh, but he was not to be seen on the ice at all tonight, which was a little bit disappointing. But I think that their skill has to get involved in this game, because you're not necessarily going to keep Pittsburgh down for 3 goals in a 7-game series. It's not going to happen. They gotta up that tempo a little bit. And I think that if I'm Ottawa, if I'm an Ottawa fan, I'm left concerned about that, not necessarily it's 1-1.
Yeah, and Ottawa can score goals, right? They have 36 goals in the playoffs, so they've shown that they can score goals in punches. They didn't get good enough chances today. Pittsburgh outplayed them. They deserve to win, but I still think this is going to be a 7-game series. I'll still take Ottawa just because I took them, but obviously, if Pittsburgh wins, I think it's a 7-game series. I don't think it's going to be 5 games or 6 games. I think this is going to be a 7-game series. All the games are going to be low scoring. It might not be the best to watch. There's going to be a couple pucks bounce here and there for either team, and then it's going to go 7, and whatever happens in the 7th game is going to happen.
Okay, let's talk about some stats. So the third period saw our only goal of the game. Phil Kessel scored basically off a play that Adam already described. Shot it, got the rebound back, and put it in the net. We will discuss Kessel. I believe we will at some point in this video. Evgeni Malkin had his 14th assist of the playoffs, and also Olli Maatta had his 5th. Penalty-wise, there was a lot of penalties that kind of went unnoticed for me. Like, it didn't feel like there was this many penalties, but there was 3 in the first, there was 5 in the second, and there was 4 in the third. And I think 3 of them came at the end of the game. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But, yeah, there was more penalties than I did think. Looking at Ottawa's side of things, Turris did have 12 penalty minutes, and 10 of them came at the end of the game. On the face-off against Malkin, they were kind of going at it head first. Malkin was getting in his face. And the funniest part about that play was Turris forced Malkin out of the play, and then Benito came in and won the draw. I just thought that was funny. Cece, 3 shots, 1 hit, 3 blocks, -1 in this game. Weidman, 2 penalty minutes, 2 shots on goal, 4 hits, 3 blocks. Phaneuf was a guy that had a lot of highlights in this game due to his hitting, but he was a -1. He did have a penalty in this game, but he had those 5 hits, a block, and 2 shots on goal. Hoffman was, kind of involved defensively, but you didn't see him much offensively. I didn't really think anybody on Ottawa played great offensively. Obviously, they got 0 goals. But guys like Turris, Stone, Hoffman, like Karlsson even. Karlsson only had 1 shot, so that's interesting. In last game, I think he had 7 or 8 or something like that. So MacArthur, these guys weren't really, Bobby Ryan, as Kev brought up, these guys weren't involved in starting the rush and creating big opportunities. There was a couple of shots and opportunities here and there that Fleury had to save. There was probably 3 big ones where Fleury made some nice saves on them, but there was no sustained pressure for a long series of time. And even if there was anything close to that, it was just a lot of possession along the boards and slap shots from far out. And I just thought Ottawa, I don't know if it was them not, having their best game or Pittsburgh adjusting. Obviously, Ottawa didn't have a ton of chances in the first game, but they played better offensively last game. On Pittsburgh's side of things, Kessel did have that goal in the game, but really otherwise, I thought he had a very poor game. He had 1 giveaway, he had a hit, and he only had 1 shot. But he was the +1 in the goal. And it was interesting to me that I thought the worst line for the Pittsburgh Penguins did score their goal. So that's kind of an interesting thing to take away. Malkin had an assist. Again, 10 penalty minutes from that last penalty at the end of the game. 2 shots on goal, 1 hit, and was not very good in the face-off dot. Mata had that assist. I thought he played a lot better. Obviously, he gave up the game-winning goal last game, but he looked like he was skating a little bit better. He didn't give up any, big opportunities. And he continues to be the only last resource the Penguins really have of a puck-moving defenseman, because Schultz is out, Letang is out, Daly is out. So they continue to lose these puck-moving defensemen. One guy that I want to bring up that I thought had an excellent game was Brian Dumoulin. He really looked really good, just up the rush, taking the puck along the boards. I thought all the defensemen on Pittsburgh were good. Ruedel, who's kind of been an unexpected good player for the Penguins this postseason, had 4 shots and 7 hits and was asked to play a lot of minutes. You also throw in the old man Hainsey, who played pretty well. Schultz didn't play much of the game. I did think that Crosby's line played really well, specifically Sid. I didn't Gensel missed a couple of opportunities. I think he hit a post in this game. When Shiri went up to that line and Russ got hurt, I thought that the Sid and the kids line back reformed and played pretty well. And Crosby made some really nice passes. Definitely a much better game than last game. Other than that, I thought the 4th line also played a really good game. And something to look out for if you're a Penguins fan is to see how much are they going to continue to play that 4th line. Cullen, Rowney, and Wilson had a big deal on winning this game, both offensively and defensively. They had a lot of possession, and they also were starting with a lot of hits. But an interesting part of the game was you didn't see much of the 3rd line, which was Benino's line with Hagelin and who was the other guy? Well, they had to keep shifting it around, so that they lost a forward in this game. That was probably why. But they kept rotating Benino and Hagelin in the lineup, and you didn't see too much of Hagelin at the end of the game. So that was an interesting point. Maybe he's still kind of injured because he had to step in there for Hornquist. But, yeah. So those were the guys that I thought played well for Pittsburgh. Ottawa, again, I didn't think anyone played a fantastic game other than their goaltender. But no, I didn't think anybody played terrible. The one guy that people probably bring up is Phaneuf, that everybody thought had a great game. I thought he had a really bad first period. Besides that huge hit, he couldn't really clear the puck. But then from there on, he kind of regained his footing and played a little bit of a better game. What did you guys think from Ottawa and from Pittsburgh in terms of the performances?
Well, from both sides, you have to mention that the goaltending was amazing for both sides. I mean, Fleury with the shutout, even though he only faced 23 shots, a shutout is a shutout. You got to give the Flower his respects. He did great. Craig Anderson, the goal that he let in, he was kind of caught already trying to make the save from the original shot that got blocked by Pajot. So he was kind of caught out of position there. It was just a quick, unlucky bounce that happened to go in and by him. So Craig Anderson, in my opinion, he still had a great game, even though he let in that odd goal. Pajot, he led technically their offense, even though he had that one bad block that led to the goal. I mean, he had a few shots in this game. Didn't look too terrible. Zach Smith, he's starting to come back in the faceoff dot at least, 75%, the only one that was positive other than Tommy Wingles for their team in the faceoff dot, which was nice to see. Erik Karlsson, where the hell is this guy? I mean, he's usually yelling at his players to get into like the lineup and to play better. He did nothing this game.
Yeah, I didn't think he played good. And actually, Pittsburgh could have scored on one of the 4-on-4 opportunities when he got just absolutely destroyed by Malkin. I don't know what happened at the blue line, but on the replay, you could just see Malkin was like up here and Karlsson was like at the blue line. Yeah, Karlsson didn't have a good game.
If Karlsson only has one shot, you know that's not going to be a good game for Erik Karlsson, and that's all that he had today. On the side of the Pittsburgh Penguins, I mean, that fourth line, I don't think that they're getting enough credit. I mean, they were absolutely the best line, I think, for the Pittsburgh Penguins this game. Cullen was 85% in the draw, which is incredible. Then you look at Wilson with 10 big hits, Rowney, 7 big hits. I mean, I definitely think that they led the team and kind of helped motivate the rest of the team to do a little bit better. Yes, Kessel did get that goal, but I agree with you there, Mitch. Besides that, he did not have a great game. You saw him on the bench. You saw him yelling at himself literally after every single play, yelling at his teammates, yelling at the coaches, yelling at even the training staff. He was just overall pissed off in this game. And Chad Ruhwedel, I mean, we mentioned him a little bit. This is a guy who honestly was not in your lineup, and we called him, I think we said when they made trades for like Strite and Hainsey and things like that, I think Mitch and I called Ruhwedel like basically your 11th defenseman. Like 4 shots, 7 hits. This guy, you got to give him credit. With 22 minutes being played, he had a great game, and he was basically the leader on their defense. So congrats for Chad Ruhwedel, because I think he deserves a spot now.
Yeah, I think, you know, the biggest part that Pittsburgh, the biggest reason why they won this game is really the depth guys. You know, that fourth line that Trent was such a big fan of, and their 5-man defensive rotation, the no-name defense that, you know, everybody likes to rip apart, including Kev. But they played a good game in this one tonight, I thought. Obviously, they didn't give up many scoring opportunities, and the Flower was there once again. Stat for the Flower: the most shutouts for a goalie right now in the NHL in the playoffs, tied with Henrik Lundqvist, but also has 16 less starts in the playoffs. 10.
Pretty impressive.
He's a player. I'm going to go with, I really like Weedle or whatever, Weedle. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he was their best defenseman, in my opinion, the whole game. Move the puck good. I'll think Crosby was their only really offense of the whole night. And now that I'm kind of looking back at the game, yeah, the other lines had some opportunities, but Crosby was their whole offense in scoring chances, really, besides that shot at the end. Setting up Sheary and Gunsel. Those guys are going to have to put the puck in the net for Pittsburgh to win, like maybe obviously to win this series, because you can't have Crosby setting up these guys in position A, some of the best chances, and they can't put it in. Obviously, if they keep on getting those chances, they're going to get a couple in. For Ottawa, the only 2 guys that really I noticed, I didn't think Stone played that bad. And that first line actually probably had more of the chances for Ottawa. And then defensively, Zach Smith actually, I thought had a really good game. And then I think Anderson, if you look at Anderson, how in control he is right now in the net, controlling rebounds. He gets unlucky. Let's see how he bounced back from it. But I thought he was really good. And then Fleury has been making the big saves, because there was still late in the period when they had the goalie pulled, their first kind of attack on the net, Ottawa, they're kind of the last chance. And then he made that big save left to right or something like that. And, you know, he's been making the big saves this whole playoff so far. So I'm impressed with Fleury because, you know, we've seen so many different Fleuries over the years, and this is the same Fleury we've seen at elite level. I think Fleury's playing the best.
For me, I think, yeah, the goalies were great on both ends, specifically the first 2 periods. Thought for Pittsburgh, yeah, their defense played a really solid team game tonight. I would still be concerned with the amount of injuries. I still think that's going to be an impact going forward, but Mitch is apparently okay because they must have the 15 best defensemen in the entire National Hockey League. So they should be fine. I thought the Crosby line was their best line, probably by far, and probably Crosby was the best player in the game tonight. Ottawa probably didn't. There wasn't a lot offensively to admire from Ottawa. I mean, Turris had a chance at the end. Has anyone seen Alex Burrows?
I've seen him in scruffles, but I haven't seen him actually play.
Yeah, he talks to people, but I haven't seen him actually produce an actual offensive or defensive play. Assist because he passed one to Pajot. But Ottawa seems to be wanting to get their offense all in bunches, and that's just a little bit concerning for me.
It almost seemed like, and I think, somebody brought this up on the broadcast, it seemed like Ottawa in the third period was waiting for Pittsburgh to make a mistake so that they could attack. Yeah,
they were playing too conservative in the third period. It was too much, and I think the concern about that is like, okay, so you got 5 minutes of offensive time. It's not like Pittsburgh's gonna like say, okay, now that you're gonna open the door, we're not gonna play defense. I mean, they're gonna have to step that up a little bit, because you're not necessarily going to keep Pittsburgh down on your first and second periods as much as you have been. Eventually, they are going to score in the first two periods here. So there's just too many weapons on Pittsburgh for that not to happen. And you can't rely on Anderson as much as you have to make the big save. So that I think the way. I guess as I've been thinking about that, I'm not necessarily enamored with Pittsburgh. I'm not necessarily thinking that Pittsburgh's not in trouble. I still think there's a few things that are red flags, a number of red flags. The fact that they still haven't scored goals in the first two periods, the fact that they're frustrated. I think they're frustrated.
Nick
Bonino has been a disappearing act.
I actually thought he played pretty well tonight.
I don't think so.
I don't think he did at all. I don't think he's been a factor in this series at all. I think the injuries are becoming a factor. Hopefully that if you're a Penguins fan, hopefully that Malkin Kessel gets them going, because they will need that to get going. But if you're Ottawa, I'm not necessarily. I think there's a lot of concerns going forward too. I mean, I think their forwards have been inconsistent. I mean, we're all admiring Pajot, but that's great. But 4 of his goals were in one game. So they are
but you could say that with Gunsel too, right? He had multiple goal games, but
he's been a little bit more consistent than Pajot in terms of offensive production.
Gunsel should have freaking scored tonight. God dang.
No,
he had like 4 chances.
They're gonna have to, because Crosby playing that well. There must be little. I know Crosby would never say it because he's an ultimate sportsman and one of the best players, obviously, in the world. But he's got to be thinking in a way like, come on, guys. Like, I'm setting you guys up tape to tape every time, right in front of the net. You got to score one of them. They're going to keep on getting chances, though, because it's Crosby.
Yeah.
He's the best player in the world, and he's playing like the best. This game really proved again that Crosby is tough. There's a couple of those one-on-ones against the boards, and how he maintains possession every time, skates around.
Yeah.
This is one of the games that you get back to being like Crosby.
Yeah. I mean, he
best player in the world.
I mean, his critics are going to go, he didn't score, but he played he was the best player on the ice tonight, in my opinion. And it's not that Ottawa has to find a way to match Crosby's talent, but Ottawa's forwards have to produce or lights out. Clark MacArthur, 2 goals. I know everyone has been inspired by his comeback. 2 goals.
Clark MacArthur looks like one of the worst players on the ice every time I see him play. Is that just me?
Probably.
No, I don't mind it. He's a great skater. He can, he's good with the puck. He makes smart decisions. I don't think you're ever going to see him giving a bad turnover up or anything like that.
All right. I just feel for a guy on the power play, he just hasn't been too dangerous. And the power plays in this game were both bad. But somebody said in the chat, which I want to get to the chat real quick, that Ottawa's especially has been terrible. And there was a couple times in this game where either team could have taken some huge momentum if they would have scored on their power play, especially Ottawa at one point in time. I think it was like...
That's what I was saying.
The Sheary penalty, I think it was, and I was pissed off about that penalty. I think it was in the second period. And or first period. And yeah, that was a huge one because Pittsburgh was starting to get their legs rolling, and then Ottawa could have scored on that power play, but they got nothing out of it.
Yeah, there's only 2 full power plays. Both teams were 0 for 1. Hope if maybe that doesn't.
There was a lot of 4 on 4.
Yeah, exactly. Which you would think could help out Pittsburgh.
It did.
As much, yeah. So
yeah. All right, let's get to the chat. CBR Paul says, "What's up, dogs? Pens." Courtney says, "Pleasantly surprised by the Pens outshooting the Sens." Packer says, "The Pens have been dropping like flies." True. Bodo says, "Down with the Canadians." Wait, Crosby is Canadian. I'm conflicted. Jet Life says, "Crosby was great. He didn't get a point, but you aren't always going to get one." Philip says, "Ottawa are far too pedestrian on the power play." Jet Life says, "I need to witness this great Pens team win back-to-back." Bodo says, "Pittsburgh's power play has been horrible too." What else we got here? SportsFX says, "Phil the Thrill can fire the pill." Jeremy says, "I'm back. Anyone else want Kyle Turris to sucker punch Malkin and Malkin out for the rest of the year?" No, not really. By the way, if that fight ever happened, I think Turris would probably be out for the series.
Malkin would snap his neck.
We also have one. I agree with Kev. Pens seem frustrated, and red flags are there.
Ooh.
See?
It's probably a Pens hater, Kev.
Doesn't matter.
SportsFX says, "Penguins, Steelers, Nationals, and for basketball, I'm just really a Westbrook fan." They're all talking about everyone they like. Packer says Blackhawks, Packers, and Boise State. Also, I think the series will be decided by the keepers. So there we go. Those are the comments. Any comment that stuck out to you guys that you think you need to respond to?
Yeah, I think that this series is going to come down to 2 players, and it's not the goalies. It's Bobby Ryan and Phil Kessel. The 2 best wingers on the teams. Whoever is better I think will lead their team to victory.
I can see that.
I'm gonna say Malkin, because Malkin, despite getting a point in each of the games, I thought he's not really been playing very well. He did score last game. He's had a couple of shifts here and there, but I'm gonna say Malkin because if Malkin's good, it's most likely that Kessel is good as well. So that means if you have Crosby's line going and Malkin's line going, and the way that this 4th line is playing, tough team to stop. So I'm gonna go Malkin for Pittsburgh. And for Ottawa, it's got to be Karlsson, man. Absolutely. I know that Anderson, but Karlsson in this game was, like Trent said, he wasn't the best performance. Only had 1 shot. You need this guy to shoot. You need this guy offensively involved. And if he's not, they're probably not going to win, and they're probably not going to score many goals, especially him being on the ice so often. So it's got to be Karlsson, and I'll say Malkin.
Mitch, I have a question for you. You have currently Justin Schultz now out and also Rust out. Who do you replace those 2 guys with?
Streit would be in, I would believe so. But I don't exactly know. But I think it would be Streit. And then for the winger, it would probably be, it depends if Hornquist can go. If Hornquist can go, then it would be Hornquist. But if he can't go, then it would be Kuhnhackl.
Why not Tommy Steelsleeves, man? I mean, this is such a hitting and such an aggressive series.
Because he would only play on the 4th line, and it wouldn't make sense for him to not,
I say bring back Tommy Steelsleeves.
Okay, bring back Tommy Steelsleeves.
The only way.
But I think I'm more concerned with Schultz because Schultz's injury looked pretty bad. I think Russ will be back relatively soon. It didn't seem too serious, but Schultz is kind of iffy. I'm kind of worried about that one.
And on that hit.
Yeah, the only way you see Steel Sleeves is if you see Chris Neal, and I don't think you're going to see Chris Neal.
But let's just talk about that FNUF hit. That's going to be played. That was the biggest hit of the playoffs. Could we say that? That was definitely the biggest hit of the playoffs. That was a perfect
story going forward. But this is, I'm going to say this as a Flames watcher, Flames fan, and FNUF Phaneuf does this. He creates this image of making these big hits, but sometimes his actual defensive game.
No, but I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying that hit. That my point was that hit was the biggest hit of the playoffs.
Oh yeah, I agree with Kev though. He had some awesome hits in this game, and I'd agree with you. That's probably the biggest hit I've seen. But I thought that Phaneuf was kind of a liability tonight. Like with all the great hits he had, I thought he had slow feet in the defensive zone and wasn't able to chase those pucks. The Penguins had a better forecheck, which is something I brought up last recap. Phaneuf wasn't able to keep up with that. And he, in the first period, like alone, I think he gave away the puck like 4 times up the boards.
My favorite thing about Phaneuf was when Don Cherry was comparing Phaneuf to Scott Stevens, like during the first intermission. I'm like, yeah, nope, they're not at all the same player. Like, yes, both make big hits, but one can actually move the puck, the other cannot whatsoever.
I think he was trying to. I think what he was trying to do there was trying to compare the style of play, and we don't see those kind of hits as much anymore that Phaneuf laid out. Stevens used to do that on a regular basis. I.e., Erik Lindros, Paul Kariya. We remember in the Stanley Cup Finals, so we don't see that as much. I'm not sure he was comparing Stevens to Phaneuf. I didn't get that.
Something that's scaring me in playoff hockey right now is because of the speed of all the players is the amount of times that guys get hurt going into the boards because they'll like slip or like almost like kill themselves, like sliding into the board. Like Kunitz, it looked like he killed himself, but he was fine. He like got up.
Because Kunitz is a great grinder, all right? You punch him in the face, he comes back 10 times stronger.
Anything else to comment about the Penguins Senators game number 2?
I think Game 3 will be a very important. Obviously, having 2-1 lead, but I think it's a huger game than people think for both teams. I think both teams need this one, so I expect a pretty intense Game 3.
Nothing?
I mean, all I was going to say was, if you're a Senators fan, don't panic because, yes, it's 1-1. Yes, you could have won this game, but you didn't. But it's the kind of thing where you have a good team. You have a great team. You know that you have a great team. Karlsson had an off night. However, Anderson was having an amazing night tonight regardless. Yes, your players up front had an off night as well. But they're fired up. They're willing to put on a great show for you back at home. So don't worry. Game 3, it's a completely new game. Just play your style of hockey. Maybe you'll win the game. If you're a Pittsburgh Penguins fan, don't worry. You dominated the Senators in this third period. You can dominate them again. You've proven it. Marc-Andre Fleury, as Adam has said, this might be the best Fleury that we've ever seen. Crosby is proving he's not injured whatsoever. He's still healthy enough to still get it done. So both sides, don't worry, but I agree with Kev. Game 3, it's big for the both of you. So just calm down and play your style of hockey.
Trent, you should get into pep talks.
Yeah, I like what I'm looking forward to the Game 3 is I feel like every game is going to be either tied going into it's going to go over to overtime, or it's going to be like an empty net situation each game. I think Ottawa plays way too tight. I bet you if they do lose again, they're going to lose the exact same way they just lost today. Getting Anderson keeping them in it, but it seems like Penguins are still the better team, getting more of the opportunities. I could see that playing out like the whole series. And then I think Ottawa can steal games like this as well. If we look at that bounce, obviously Penguins still with more scoring chances. For the most part, Ottawa was still just one chance away. Obviously, they couldn't get any shots, and that third period was bad. But even if they play a bit better, they're going to get opportunities to tie it up or get that greasy goal to make it 1-0. Because we've seen the Vancouver Canucks in 2011. We've seen, the way Penguins just won. That's how the Canucks won their games. Obviously, it's not they're two different teams. But this game reminded me a lot of the Canucks in the Stanley Cup Finals against a team they're much better than, and all of a sudden they only win by 1 goal, and then Game 3, Game 4, sometimes it doesn't go their way. So I think chances are good, but I also think not scoring on those chances hurts you.
Yeah,
what do you think, Trent?
You
know what I mean? Like, chances are great, but I think for how many chances Pittsburgh has had in the past 3 or 4 games and how many have they not scored, I think that also could be a problem.
I would be worried if they weren't getting chances. I would be worried if they were the Senators in this game. I think the more chances you get, the more chances you're going to score. So I'm banking on them to score a couple more goals.
No,
But
for
we'll
sure.
see.
But we banked on them to score. You know, you were thinking that this was going to be 4 goals every game,
Yeah.
right? You said if Ottawa wants to win, they're going to have to score more than 3 or 4 goals.
Just because I was taking the average of how many goals Pittsburgh usually scores.
No, I know, but yeah, I'm just saying that now it looks like it's going to be a tight game, and
It does.
One goal's going to win each game pretty much. Maybe two, like 2.
It would
max.
seem like that after the first 2 games, but we'll have to see in game number 3. Let us know in the comment section who you guys think is going to win. From Mitch, Trent, Kev, AC. Hope you guys enjoyed this recap of Penguins Senators game number 2. Penguins take it 1-0 off a Phil Kessel goal. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace out.